get paid. It's how much are you going to get. So I can work for free for the 2 to 3 years, knowing that at the end there's going to be some money coming in and I'll get a cut out of something. Maybe it'll be big, maybe it won't be so big, but there will be some money.
You have to make a living.
Yeah, in the patent world, there is so many things that can go wrong between idea, even once you get a patent, to making money. And I will say that I have tried that type of a deal on a couple of occasions with friends or friends of family, and I've never made a dime. And what I have found, and every other attorney that I've talked to who's tried this has found, is that on the first bump in the road, the inventor who has no money invested quits. So you as the patent attorney have got a lot of time and energy into this, and now the inventors quit. And your ethical duty is to represent your client who now no longer wants to go forward. So there's an ethical dilemma presented. There is just the reality presented that there's over, maybe 2% of inventions make money anyway. And the inventors who don't have skin in the game are overwhelmingly likely to not stay the course.
Yeah. It's all, and again, it's all about the research and budgeting. And I know that you're a big advocate from what you write about of budgeting yourself and putting a game plan together, right, Gene? It's really, when I first started, I used to spend money on industrial engineers for a simple kitchen gadget until I realized that I needed somebody who can just simply make a product design for me at maybe an eighth of the cost, an eighth of the time. And now, when I come up with an idea, it's almost like it's like just getting ready to go to the office. I mean, it's simple enough at this point. But for those that are starting off now, Gene, and just learning the process, it could be expensive, but it's all relative. You start to speak to people that say, hey, we had Shapeways on our show last week, which is online 3D printing upload. One of our sponsors is Mojo 3D Printers, where you can buy a desktop for less than $1,000 now. So there's so many different opportunities that you can really save, and asking people questions and finding out information can really help you. But what's your take, Gene, on just kind of budgeting yourself and putting a plan together?
Yeah, you have to budget. And again, going back to the fact that creative people create, the nightmare scenario is that your first idea that then you work on to create into an invention turns out to be really bad. It's just not going anywhere. And then if you have used all available resources on that bad idea, the next one, which may be the really good one, you can't pursue. So now you've got to have an idea of how much time and money can I invest into this particular project that I'm pursuing. Now, where a lot of inventors fall down, and you can kind of understand it, because you don't want to go down a path and then turn off the path right before you are going to get to the reward. But a lot of times inventors will follow that path far too long. It's not going anywhere, and they should have peeled off a while back. So you've got to have checks and balances so that you continue pursuing your idea into an invention as long as that seems to make sense. So you have to have some checks in the road. An important check, as we talked about, is a patent search. Are you likely to get anything out of this anyway? Another check is do a short run. And by that, what I mean is a lot of people want to rush off to China and get manufacturing over there. Well, with your first short run, the goal is actually not to make money. The goal is to see whether anybody's going to buy it. So if you've got to lose money on every sale for the first 20 or 30 sales, that's fine. Because if you can prove you had 25 people that wanted to buy it, to somebody who might be interested in licensing, that is really good information to have.
You see, Gene, you're talking about running a business at this point. And
exactly.
Right? And we're talking about in the beginning of the show that when you come up with an idea, that you should treat it like a business and make the decisions like that's your foundation, and that's to say, am I opening up a restaurant that's exactly the same as next door? Does it make sense? Is there an opportunity here or not? Those are the questions before you even put a penny into the idea. But look at where we are now from what you're speaking about is, running to China or producing your product, and you have to make some business decisions along the way if it's a viable opportunity or not. And if it is, keep going, and if it's not, move on to your next idea.
That's exactly right. And I always try and tell people that you got to treat, if you're going to be successful, you have to treat this as a business. And you really need to treat every new idea. And I go back to idea because remember, that's where all this starts with, is that aha moment that then you translate into an invention. But from that earliest stage where it's the aha moment, you need to treat it as this is potentially the $1 million invention that you've always hoped for. Because if you don't treat it properly from the earliest stages, you have totally compromised yourself by the time that you figure out that it really was the $1 million invention. So you want to document it, you want to keep notes, you want to keep records, you want to move forward accordingly, you want to budget. If you have a significant other, you got to sit down and say, how much can we afford to do this? And it's not just money. Maybe in order to do this right, there'll come a point in time where maybe you're working 2 jobs, maybe you're not going to be able to work that second job if you're going to continue to move down this path. But you can't just go out and quit your job. You can't just go out and take your kids' college savings unless things are really, really succeeding. And the moral of the story is you got to walk before you can run. And you just have to be responsible.
And make educated risks. And take educated risks, I should say. And
yeah. That's exactly right. I mean, at some point, so the thing is, with budgeting and talking all this through and so forth, what you're trying to do is minimize the risk, because you don't want to go off. It's not. How many of us are going to go to Vegas and put $1,000 down on the roulette wheel on black? Okay, I mean that's just a total gamble, right? You're not going to do that. But you've got better odds doing that than you do most of the time with inventions. Okay, so why would you do one and not the other? Okay, well, you're not going to do something that seems overly risky in Vegas. But so then what you got to do is say, okay, well, then I got to translate that into my inventing life. So what that means is taking small steps that are prudent given the information available. And then when the information available suggests I ought not to go any further, then don't go any further. And I have a patent attorney friend, and he always tells me one of the things he tells independent inventors is if you don't know 5 people right now that would pay money for what you've invented, don't pursue it.
Because they feel bad for you, or because it's a good idea? That's the question.
well, that's the thing, But the thing is if you can't find 5 that you think one or the other, don't do it.
Yep.
Don't do it. But again, that goes back to, seriously, because the limited run, and that's what a lot of people really, really miss, is you think you're in the game of making money. Okay, that's the ultimate goal at the end. But there's plenty of steps in this road that are not going to make money, but that are there to serve a purpose. Whether you do the patent search first or not, eventually you're going to want to have some kind of proof of concept to feel like you can actually pull this off.
Right.
And you can do that in your garage, or you could go out and, I wouldn't recommend it, just go to prototype people right off the bat. You could go to, 3D CAD people can give you a pretty good idea of, proof of concept for a fraction of the cost. You got to do something. Okay, and then you continue to invest a little bit more, and then you're going to get to the point where you say, all right, I got to make some of these to see whether or not people are going to actually buy them. Or it's all on paper, it works on paper, but, is this thing actually going to fly? Maybe quite literally, will it fly? And if it does, hey, you've reached another threshold. And if you can get people to buy it, you've reached another threshold. Now, the other nice thing about this, and to go back to Stephen Key, his new book, he talks about this in the new book, and when I chatted with him, we talked about this at length, is a lot of these steps, you notice, you don't have to decide whether you're going to go the licensing route or you're going to go the manufacturing and selling route, because a lot of these steps are identical. You can make those decisions down the road a little ways. So I always try and tell inventors, don't rush the decision-making process. You got to invent. You got to try and get some rights if you can. You've got to go through all these business processes internally, and they're going to help you both if you're going to go the licensing path or the manufacturing path.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good stuff. Gene, we're just about coming to a wrap of the show. You've given some tremendous advice. It's been a great conversation. I really appreciate all the information you've been giving. There's inventors that are just starting off with a piece of paper, I guess that napkin with their idea on it, and then there's people that have products that are, or ideas that are just there where they're trying to license their idea, or they're just starting to manufacture it and getting out into production. And then there's successful inventors and resources that are listening. What are some final pieces of advice that you can give to everybody out there from all your experience and your blogging and meeting people? Tell us a couple final words to leave us with tonight.
Well, the first thing I would just tell people is that, if you never play the lottery, you're never going to win the lottery. And what I mean by that is if you've come up with ideas and you just never pursued them, then you're not going to be successful. Okay, so if you think you've got something worth pursuing, stop thinking that it can't happen to you, because inventors are normal people. I know a lot of inventors. I wouldn't say a lot. I know inventors that are in the Hall of Fame, and they're just people too. Okay, and they had an idea and they pursued it. So, one, get in the game. That's number one. Number two is do it in a responsible way, and I think the only way you can do that is you got to educate yourself. So that's twofold, and I'll leave it at this. You educate yourself on the law, learn as much about the patent system as you can, and then two, whatever industry you're going to jump into or try and jump into, you got to learn as much as you can about that, because inventors that invent in an area that they know and understand are disproportionately successful.
Makes sense. Gene, thank you so much. That was Gene Quinn of IPWatchdog.com. He's the founder and editor of IPWatchdog.com. You're also a patent attorney at Zeit, Wiedemann, and Melick. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And again, Gene updates his blog daily, IPWatchdog.com. You could sign up for subscription emails that come out as Gene posts things on the website. Great resource. Thank you so much, Gene. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And we'd like to thank our sponsors of Got Invention Radio, Inventors Digest Magazine. You can go to any of the buttons on Got Invention pages, and you click on the banner and receive 33% off the cover price of that magazine. United Inventors Association, UIAUSA.org, Mojo 3D Printers, China2S.com, Carter, DeLuca, Farrell, and Schmidt, and QuickPatents.com. Thank you, everybody, for your support. Thank you again, all the listeners out there, for your support. We keep having some great guests on, like Gene, and we'll see you next week. Have a great night from Got Invention Radio. Good night.